In this lesson, we're going to be talking about forms. Forms are shapes that have become 3D. Shapes are flat, but a form is something that can be filled. So, something that you can pour into, something that has height and depth and width and volume. So, a form is a 3D shape. So, if you had a square, the form of that would be a box. A rectangle would be like a bigger box or a table, something that has depth to it. If you would like our worksheets for this lesson, just click over to our website and sign up to our Freebie Library where you can find printables and coloring pages and the worksheets that go with all of our videos. And we'd just love to have you. Use this worksheet to practice drawing forms such as a box or a cube or a cylinder, a cone, a pyramid. A sphere is a circle that has become three-dimensional like a ball. It's a round form and it has depth to it on the outside. You can see the dark areas and the light areas on a form of a circle, which would be a sphere. To capture a sphere in art, you have to figure out where your light source is. Where is the light hitting the sphere? And this is where we start doing blending and shading to have dark areas moving into light areas. Your light source area, where the light is actually hitting the sphere, is going to be your brightest, whitest spot. And then it will gradually go to the darker side where the light is not able to hit the underneath of the sphere or the ball. And that's where you're going to have a shadow that comes across. It'll be really darker closest to the sphere, and then it lightens out even in the shadows. Even shadows have dark and light areas. Isn't always just blending or smearing pencil. Sometimes it can be cross hatching or making lines closer together in an area, which will make them look darker or more shadows, and then spreading them apart to lighten them in other areas. And even just simple lines and doodles can give you a form or the shape or blending in a sphere. Grab a piece of paper and just practice drawing shapes into forms. The other worksheet in this lesson is a Bible verse that says, "with you," and it is to remind you from Isaiah 41, verse 10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. The reason we chose this verse and the words "with you" is because sometimes we think that we are alone. We may feel alone or afraid. We may think that it's just us and no one else understands us. And that's not true. God is with you at all times, everywhere you go. And we want you to be reminded of that, because even we have to be reminded when we get scared or anxious or afraid that we're not alone. God is always with us. He is before you, behind you, beside you. He is surrounding you. He is all around. And so that reminds us of a form that God's love is so big and wide and deep and high. And we're not alone because He's with us. And so you always have His love. You always have His presence with you. And when something is high and deep and wide and it's a form, it can be filled. And what God wants you to do is to be filled with His love, be filled with His presence, and remember that He is always with you. When you remember that your heart is a form, your heart is actually not flat. Sometimes we draw the shape of a heart and we cut it out, and that is a flat shape. But God wants to fill you. Your heart is something that is three-dimensional. It has depth and width and height, and it can be filled. It's not meant to be empty. And sometimes we forget that God wants to fill your heart completely, not just a part of it, all of it. And when you give Him all your heart and allow Him to fill you completely, you are then able to pour out to other people that same love. When we are filled with Him, we will never be empty. We will always have His presence. God wants you to be filled with Him so that you can pour out His love to those around you. We're going to turn with into something like a gemstone or frozen ice that's been crystallized, a crystal. And to do that, you're just going to shade in darker areas on each triangle or each geometric shape that you create. And it's going to make the reflective surface on every angle that you put into this letter. So we're just going to divide it up. It'll start looking like triangles, and then it'll start looking like longer triangles, and then it'll just be some other geometric shape that only a mathematician can figure out, not artists. Take one space at a time. Find a dark area, blend it out to a lighter area, and leave some white spaces. And then eventually this will just look like a gemstone or some frozen fractured ice pieces.